Afternoon to you. Welcome to this live broadcast from the National Assembly chambers on this 11th day of June 2019. The members of Parliament will be engaging in a number of businesses this afternoon, but before we get into that, we'll take a look at what to expect, what is in the order of business this Tuesday afternoon. This broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit, PBU, in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, KBC. My name is Edward Kabasa. Our sign language interpreter this afternoon is Leonida Kaula. The member for Pokot South, Honorable David Epkosing, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government a number of questions which will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. Among the questions is the Cabinet Secretary aware that Mr. Matayo Pogisho Lotila of ID number 769475 of Echepareira location, Abraham Lungura, and Daniel Rita Kwang from Mosop location of Sigor constituency, and Simeon Rio Mongole of Parua sublocation of Pokot South constituency were abducted by persons allegedly said to be police officers outside Kapinguria Law Courts on 29th May 2019. The member for Bura constituency, Honorable Ali Wario, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Irrigation 5 questions which will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. The member for Sabatia constituency, Honorable Agoy Alfred Masaida, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development 2 questions, and the questions will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. The members who will be asking questions this afternoon is the member for Yata, Honorable Charles Kilonzo, and the member for Nyaribari Masaba, Honorable Ezekiel Mochogu Ombaki. Also in the order of business this afternoon will be a procedural motion by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations, and the Chairperson will be seeking extension of period for consideration of nominees for appointment to diplomatic missions. The committee has been vetting nominees, and yesterday they did vet the nominees who have been proposed to head Kenya's missions in Accra, Ghana, Berlin, Germany, Bern, Switzerland, Dakar, Senegal, Rome, Italy, and Kuwait City. And they will be seeking a period of 14 days to complete this particular process. The Gaming Bill, National Assembly Bill number 38 of 2019, will be read for the first time. Now, the objective of this bill is to establish an Act of Parliament to provide for the control and licensing of betting, casinos and other forms of gaming, authorization of prize competitions and public lotteries, for the establishment of the National Lottery, for the imposition of a tax on gaming and for connected purposes. There are other bills which have been brought from the Senate. They've been forwarded to the National Assembly and they will also be read for the first time. Speaker Justin Muturi has walked into the chambers. Now I will hand you over for the live broadcast. Good afternoon.
Almighty God, who in wisdom and goodness have appointed the office of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests were committed to our church. Amen. We may begin. We may commence, I think.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
I'll do this one before we get to order number 8. Members, there's a communication that will come just before we get to order number 8. Proceed.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honour members, starting order number 225, subsection 2, paragraph B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other those presented by a member. I therefore wish to report to the House that my office has received a petition submitted by one Philip Juguna on behalf of Kandara Residents Association, which draws its members from Murang'a and Kiambu counties. The petitioner claims to be the registered owners of the land presently occupied by Del Monte Kenya Limited, but were illegally displaced, and the land was leased to Del Monte Kenya Limited. The petitioners aver that in anticipation of expiry of the lease, the county government of Murang'a has irregularly renewed the lease in favor of Del Monte Kenya Limited, contrary to the provisions of Section 13 of the Lands Act 2012, which provide that at the expiry of a leasehold tenure, the National Land Commission shall inform the lessee of his or her preemptive right to allocation of the land upon application, provided that such lessee is a Kenyan citizen, and B, the land is not required by the national or county government for public purposes. Honour members, the petitioners open that by proceeding to unilaterally renew the lease, the county government of Murang'a not only usurped the exclusive power vested in the National Land Commission to renew leases, but also sidestepped the constitutional principle of public participation to determine whether the public also had an interest in the land. This is in total disregard of the resolutions of Kandara residents made in February 2017 that the public interest of the residents be upheld. The petitioners also allege that the National Land Commission intends to renew the lease despite recommending on the 7th of February 2017 that to address the historical land injustice, the county government of Murang'a should retain adequate amounts of land for settlement of claimants and public purpose when the leases expire in May 2019. Honour members, given the same developments, the petitioners are concerned that their hope of reclaiming ancestral land at the expiry of the lease held by Del Monte Kenya Limited will be permanently curtailed. They are therefore praying that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Lands, inquires into the matter with a view to ensuring that the process of renewing the lease of land held by Del Monte Kenya Limited is conducted within the law and in a transparent and participatory process that takes into account the rights and interests of members of Kandara Residents Association over the same land are safeguarded. Honourable members, pursuant to the provision standing on number 227, this petition now stands committed to the Departmental Committee on Lands. The committee is requested to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and to the petitioner in accordance with the provisions of standing on number 227, subsection 2. I thank you, members. Sorry, I can see is there an intervention? Honorable Manzo, what is your...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to comment on this petition. Mr. Speaker, this is not an isolated case in the country, and many leases are coming over, including in the city, and there has been no clear method of how leases are renewed, although the law has been there and the actions have been taken, Mr. Speaker, similar to what has just been presented in many, many other parts of the country, Mr. Speaker. So I believe this is going to help many people when the committee considers this particular petition, and we can have a definite way and a direction given by Parliament on how best to deal with renewed leases. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Bandai.
Mr. Speaker, yeah, I also think this is a very important petition and it needs to be dealt with as expeditiously as possible. Mr. Speaker, you will agree with me that land remains a very emotive issue in this country. And even though we need investors, including the foreign ones, we should not do so at the expense of the ordinary Mwananchi. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, the law should be followed to the letter. But one problem, Mr. Speaker, even as the committee deals with this matter, is the problem of the National Land Commission. Mr. Speaker, the immediate former commissioners and officers of the commission did this country a lot of disservice. And I hope that now that we are trying to constitute the new commission, a lot of effort will be put in ensuring that we have the right people in place to deal with these matters of land going forward. Thank you.
Honorable Muli.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, to give me a chance to debate on this motion. Honorable Speaker, it is true, the issue of land in this country is cross-cutting the entire jurisdiction of Kenya. A land not only give the safety of a human being, but this conflict within the land issue in Kenya is causing violent out of socio-economical problem. I'm counting from my way to my constituent Kangundo. If you see the issues in Kamulu, Joska, KBC is about a group of people. They come together, register and backdate a cooperative unit, then they start claiming this as their land. Honorable Speaker, it is a high time, this House, we need to give a proper resolution about the right of people and right of ownership of the land. Thank you.
Finally, Honorable Ba.
Thank you, Speaker. I would like to contribute to this petition and say this, that the problem, especially in the renewal of leases, is basically a tough war between the ministry and NLC. Because if you look at what the ministry says, if the lease has not expired, 3 months before the expiry of the lease, then the ministry says they have the power to renew the lease. But when it expires, then NLC has power to renew the lease. Now, what many people are doing, those leases, what are they doing is that they wait 2-3 months before and they go to the ministry, and the ministry actually renews the leases, despite the law that the lease, they have to wait until the lease expires. So we need to actually untangle the law to ensure that actually one body has the power to, absolute power to deal with leases. On these big leases. Kilifi, for example, is one of the areas that is affected. But you hear, before NLC says anything, a lease has been actually renewed by the ministry. And that was where we start having a problem. The county government has not been consulted, no one else has been consulted, but they say, you see, the law says that at the expiry of the lease, then the land reverts back to the county government, and then now NLC can take over from there and renew or give back the land. So we need to go to the law and actually say that at the expiry or before expiry, NLC has the mandate to consult the county government on the same. That way then we'll save these things. Otherwise, like the petition says, that Del Monte land is being renewed. Yes, they will renew it. Why? Because there is, the law is not clear on this matter. So I would urge that we do an amendment on the law. Thank you.
Finally, I think the member for Community.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, indeed, this is a very important petition. We are aware, Mr. Speaker, even the governor of Nandi, who is now in custody, it was a similar matter. And we need some clarity in terms of the expiry of this lease. Who should be given preference? And as my colleague has cited that particular section of consultation, I don't think it's taking place. This petition, Mr. Speaker, we know there are a lot of historical injustices in this country, and it is under the function of the National Land Commission. It's unfortunate we've not finalized on the issue of National Land Commission. We are praying, Mr. Speaker, that the process can expedite so that we can have the commissions in place. I'm aware of some farmers from Trans Nzoia, Mr. Speaker. Up to now, they've not even gotten their title deeds because we don't have the commissioners in office in the National Land Commission. So it's a very critical petition, Mr. Speaker, and we call upon the Committee on Lands to move with speed on this matter and not just to look at the issue of Thika, Kiambu. They should also look at the sides of Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, Nandi County, where we've had these cases of land leases, particularly with multinationals. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Petition committed to the Departmental Committee on Lands. Honourable members, before we proceed to the next order, allow me to recognize the presence, both in the Speaker's Gallery and in the public gallery, of students from the following institutions. Students from St. Teresa Bikeke Girls High School, Community Constituency, Trans Nzoia County. Those from St. Mark's Kiminda High School, Mgwen Constituency, Nandi County. Those from Baringo High School, Eldama Ravine Constituency, Baringo County. Those from St. Cecilia Girls High School, Lugari Constituency, Kakamega County. And finally, students from Kaganda, pupils from Kaganda Primary School, Kiharu Constituency, Muranga County. They are all welcome to observe the proceedings of the National Assembly this afternoon. We move to the next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the majority party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June 11th, 2019. The report of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following constituencies for the year that ended 30th June 2018 and the certificate therein. Thika Town Constituency, Dagroti South, Westlands, Kilifi South, Kilifi North, Changamwe, Matuga, Rabai, Msambweni, and Vita.
The Chairman, Departmental Parliamentary Broadcasting and Library Committee.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June 11th, 2019. Report of the Committee on Parliamentary Broadcasting and Library, visit to the National Broadcasters show held in Las Vegas, Nevada, from 6th to 12th of April, 2019.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 7, notices of motion.
No, it can't be. Order number 6, we did not read.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Members, let's go to the questions. The first question is by the member for Pokot South, the Honorable Singh.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Ask question number 15 of 2019 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior
and coordination of national government. Question 1, Honorable Speaker. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that Mr. Matayo Poisho Lotulia of Japarere location, Abraham Longura and Daniel Ritaikwang from Mosop location in Sigor constituency, and Simon Rionongole of Parwa location of Pokot South constituency were abducted by persons allegedly said to be police officers outside Kapenguria locals on 29 May 2019. Question 2, Honorable Speaker. Is the Cabinet Secretary further aware that on 30th May 2019, the bodies of Matayo Lotulia and Abraham Longura were found at Kapkatet Forest of Uasin Gishu District, more than 300 kilometers from West Pokot County, with Daniel Reitaikwang and Simon Rionongole being found later in critical condition in the same forest, having survived gunshots? Third question, Honorable Speaker. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that such cases are on the increase in West Pokot County, Honorable Speaker, including the murder of Zakayo Rotino and his daughter, both of Sikor constituency, who were killed at their Chepchoina home in Trans Nzoia County on 13 January 2019, allegedly, Honorable Speaker, again by the police? Finally, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the circumstances surrounding these alleged extrajudicial killings with objective of identifying the killers and ensuring that justice to the victims and bringing the culprits to book, Honorable Speaker? And I thank you.
That's a question by private notice and should therefore be prioritized by the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, where the Cabinet Secretary will respond. Go to the honorary questions. The first in that list is by the member for Bura, the Honorable Wario.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me opportunity to ask question number 237 of 2019, directed to Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Irrigation, Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Irrigation. My question, Mr. Speaker, is the Cabinet Secretary aware that Bura Irrigation and Settlement Scheme Rehabilitation Project, which was initiated in 2013, has since stalled despite an initial completion target of 2015? What components of the project were envisaged during inception? Did they undergo any modification? And if so, could the Cabinet Secretary provide evidence of related correspondences with donors? Question 3, Mr. Speaker. Does the project include a component of financial support and capacity building of farmers? And if so, what is the status of implementation of the same? Has the donor or financier carried out appraisal on the current status of the project? And if so, could the ministry provide evidence of the same? When is the loan validity for the said project ending? And how does it affect project implementation? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I believe now it has captured all the aspects that...
Exactly, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Question to be responded to before the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. Next question by the member for Sabatia, Honorable Agoi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to ask question 247 of 2019. The question is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, and Urban Development. This is the question. Question number 1. What is the government of Kenya position on the continued use of Boeing 737 aircraft by airlines operating within its airspace in view of suspension and or ban of such aircraft by other nations as a result of involvement in accidents in the recent past? The second question, Honorable Speaker, which is more important and which affects me because some of the people who died were in my constituents and they want help, is what steps has the ministry taken in assisting families who lost their loved ones in such accidents to get compensation? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Agoi, just as a matter of clarity, do you mean the 737, just like that?
Pardon?
Is it just 737? I thought there was something beyond
Aircraft. 737 aircraft. Boeing 737 aircraft, Honor Speaker.
No. 737 MAX. It is not just, I thought you knew what you're asking.
Yes.
There are still there's still quite a number of other 737s. You must be specific. Or the question was handed over to you by somebody. It is not.
I'm asking, Honorable Speaker, I'm standing guided. I'm asking the General Boeing.
There?
Max. It's 737 Max, Honorable Speaker.
So this question, if it is handed over to the Cabinet Secretary, when it is like this, he'll tell you that this one, it is not every 737 that has been suspended. Because they are still there.
Honorable Speaker, we all know the one that was suspended, the 737 Max. The one that crashed in Ethiopia and Malaysia. But
it is important that you capture every detail to avoid a situation whereby the Cabinet Secretary comes and gives you an answer that there has been no suspension of 737 generally. Then you say, no, there were some. But you say you did not put the specific ones which have been suspended.
I stand guided, Honorable Speaker, but my statement at the beginning had all the details. This could have been a typing error.
Very well.
Thank you.
To be responded to before the Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next question by your neighbor there, the member for Yata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the status of the report, of the PROM committee report led by the then Deputy Provincial Commissioner, Mr. Callistus Akelo, regarding persons living as squatters in Dalani location of Yata district, which was conducted in the period 1989 to 1990. What action has government taken, or what action is government taking to ensure that the squatters are not harassed or evicted by absentee landlords?
Well, to be responded to before the Departmental Committee on Lands. Final question by the member for Nyaribari Masaba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir. My question number 250 is to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that Ekona, Nyamasibi, Nyanturago, and Keroka, Ivajo Kiamukama roads in Nyaribari Masaba constituency had been earmarked for tarmacking and the road forum city roads and allocated a sum of 1.6 billion in the 2015-2016 financial year, but no contracts were awarded or works commenced. What steps is the ministry has taken to ensure that the contracts for construction of the two roads are awarded without further delay and that budgetary allocation for the two roads is provided? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We have to be responded to before the Departmental Committee on Transport and Public Works. There's a statement sought by the member for Teso North, the Honorable Kaunya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to read a statement on the demise of the late Hon George Frederick Oduya Oprong, independence hero, former Assistant Minister and MP for Magoro constituency, which is currently Teso North and Teso South constituency. Honorable Speaker, as you are already aware, Busia County and the nation at large continues to mourn the death of a charismatic leader, statesman, independence hero, and trade unionist, the former Assistant Minister and MP for Magoro, the Honorable Oduya Oprong, MBS, who passed on 25th of May 2019 while undergoing treatment at Kenyatta National Hospital. Honorable Speaker, the late Oduya Oprong was born in 1936 in Busia County. He studied at Chamasiri Secondary School for his O-level and thereafter proceeded to Butonge Secondary School in Bungoma County, where he sat for his A-level. Honorable Speaker, the late Oprong's journey to politics began when he became the first Secretary General of the Kenya Quarry Mines and Allied Workers Union, being one of the founder members. He later became the first MP in Busia North in 1963. He was among one of the 4 surviving other members of the first parliament at the time of his death, the rest being Honorable His Excellency Daniel Arap Moi, former president, Charles Njonjo, the former Attorney General, His Excellency Mwai Kibaki, the former president, and Honorable James Osogo, a former MP for Busia South, now Bunyala constituency. In 1966, he was among the 11 MPs who survived a by-election during the mass defection to Mzee Jaramogi Oginga Odinga's Kenya People's Union, until 1969, when he was replaced by Ojamo Jamong and later Emoto Ebu, respectively. He made one of the strongest political mileage when he served again as Member of Parliament in 1974 on a KANU ticket until 1979, when he lost his seat to Achia Echakara, the late Member of Parliament, and thereafter to Pancras Otwani subsequently. He vied for a 3rd term in 1992 during the multi-party elections and was elected a member of Amagoro constituency. Honorable Speaker, Mzee Oprong served the country under his capacity as an Assistant Minister for Economic Planning and National Development at the time he was shot. He was awarded the Head of State Commendation, Civilian Division, because of his contribution towards national development. He is known to many as one fallen retired politician who championed with the late Jaramogi Oginga Odinga for the release of the founding father of this nation and first president of Kenya, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, from detention. Honorable Speaker, in 1993, the late Honorable Prong escaped death by a whisker when he was shot twice one evening in Nairobi. This left him with a bullet remains in his head for 25 years until his demise. Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the residents of Teso North constituency and on my own behalf, I take this opportunity to convey a message of condolence and comfort to the family, relatives, and friends of the late former Assistant Minister Mzee Frederick Oduya Oprong for the loss of the great community and national leader at this point in time. As a Member of Parliament, I want to assure the family of my support during this period of great sorrow. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the family of the late Member of Parliament presented a petition on the welfare of the late Oduya Oprong and his family to this Parliament, which is still pending determination in the House. I urge you to prioritize this matter, Honorable Speaker. I wish to also emphasize on the need for the government to conduct a further inquiry on the case to establish the motive behind the attempted killing of the former MP, former Member of Parliament, Oduya Oprong. And I also urge that the bullet that is currently still lodged, which could not be removed as doctors had instructed that removal would endanger his life, be investigated and forensic investigation be carried out to determine the killers. I also request the members of parliament to stand in prayer and support with the family of the late member of parliament, Amagoro, and in giving him a befitting send-off, and the burial arrangements are in progress. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. I see the member for Suba South wants to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I also want to join Kenyans in mourning this great Kenyan who served as a member of parliament way back when this country was just at its formative stage after the colonial rule, the former MP for Maguru. I just want to talk about the plight of former MPs in 1 or 2 minutes, Mr. Speaker, if you allow me. Mr. Speaker, the case of the late Honorable Duya Prong is a classical example of how this country has treated former members of parliament in terms of once you leave office, you live a pathetic life, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, following that reasoning, and together with the plight of many other former members of parliament, some of whom are getting as little as 3,000 shillings per month in form of pension, Mr. Speaker, that is why I've drafted a bill which is taking too long, Mr. Speaker. In fact, I'm so worried about the process of processing bills, especially the pre-publication scrutiny. Once the bill has gone through the Budget and Appropriations Committee, Mr. Speaker, then the bill goes to the Finance Committee like this one or Departmental Committee. And again, when after the first reading, the same bill will go to the Departmental Committee. Mr. Speaker, this process, I think, needs to be relooked into. Those of us who are in the committee looking at our standing orders, I don't see the rationale of the same committee doing pre-publication scrutiny, yet the same departmental committee will be looking at the bill after the first reading. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope the Finance Committee, and I'm sure the chair is around, Honorable Limo, will expedite that bill which is supposed to cushion the former members of parliament, Mr. Speaker. When you see the Honorable Mako Nyango, Mr. Speaker, someone who is very eloquent in this parliament, cannot even afford 10,000 shillings monthly to meet his medication. Mr. Speaker, something needs to be done. And these MPs are dying, by the way, but in their numbers, I think now they are about 153. A few years ago, they are less than that. A few years ago, they were 500 plus. So, Mr. Speaker, as we mourn this great Kenyan, I think the plight of former members of parliament needs to be looked into, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Well, honour members, you know, when you press your intervention, I see. So when you have pressed your intervention, then you want to come and whisper to me. Now it looks like you are campaigning, you know. Now your name is there, but please don't do it. When you know you have pressed your intervention box button, just wait where you are, because I see. Member for Naivasha.
Mr. Speaker, thanks for this chance to mourn my former boss, the Honorable Oduya Prong. When I was a young girl, he was an assistant minister for labor, and that is where I used to work. He was a calm man. We loved him very much. We didn't know we would ever get to enter this house because it was so prestigious when we were young. But he was a good boss. I wish his family comfort and God's blessings. And
the member who is in front of you here, you know, you can see, I mean, is it that when you get into here, you stop, you throw all care to the weed?
Yeah,
I pray that the rules don't allow you to be like that. Proceed.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I pray that our good Lord comforts the family, who I happen to know because they used to come and see their dad when I was the secretary in the Ministry of Labor. So the people I know, and I mourn with the family. Thank you very much.
Member for Community.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my family and the people of Community, I want to convey the message of condolence to the family of Frederick Oduya Obrong, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the late minister played a very critical role as far as the peace between the Bukusu and the Teso is concerned. There were a lot of clashes before, and Mr. Speaker, is this late minister who played a critical role in bringing the two communities together. He was a very humble man, Mr. Speaker. I heard about him, Mr. Speaker, when I was still in school, and I happened to visit the family, Mr. Speaker, and the family is in a very sorry state, Mr. Speaker. This is very, very critical, particularly to Parliamentary Service Commission, Mr. Speaker. We need to do something. To our colleagues who left this parliament, Mr. Speaker, they played a very critical role in legislation, and they are now staying in poverty, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you don't need to go far. When you go to our mess, Mr. Speaker, you find many of them, they are languishing. And they've been asking, how far have we gone as far as their men is concerned, Mr. Speaker? I remember we attempted this in the last parliament. I don't know whether Treasury had rejected. But it's important, Mr. Speaker, today we are in, tomorrow we'll be outside, Mr. Speaker. The state they are in, Mr. Speaker, it's a very, very sorry state. And as we speak right now, I'm hoping the chairman of finance, Honorable Limo, is here and is listening. We must be able to move with speed, Mr. Speaker, so that these requests that they have put across, Mr. Speaker, can be implemented and the money can be paid. In this time and era, Mr. Speaker, what will you do with 80,000, Mr. Speaker? You cannot even pay rent in a slum area, Mr. Speaker. Obrong, Mr. Speaker, lived with the 25 years bullet in his head, Mr. Speaker, and now he's gone. So it is indeed important, as parliamentarians who are here today, we know the shoe and where it pinches, and we should be able to help one of our own. When you leave this parliament, Mr. Speaker, there's no way you're going to be employed, whether it's an NGO, whether it's in government or wherever it is. So it is critical we should look into this matter so that these people can also have a proper welfare as they move on, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you.
Member for Nambale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I rise to pay tribute on behalf of myself. I knew the late Honorable Oduya Obrong personally, and on behalf of the people of Nambale, to this great leader from Busia, from Teso North specifically. Mr. Speaker, I got to know Honorable Oduya Obrong when I was in high school, and he was campaigning in the pre-election parliament, the first parliament at independence. This was an audit of great proportions. He was a people's person. He was daring, he was fearless, but he loved his people. Oduya was special, having been a trade unionist. These are the people who actually agitated significantly for the part of the process, pre-independence process, that got us to Lancaster. Oduya initiated his own trade union of mining and quarry workers union, and he was extremely eloquent about the rights of workers, as well as the rights of his people. We shall miss Oduya substantially. So, Speaker, sir, I have a petition that I submitted to Parliament, resubmitted to Parliament about 2 months ago. It's supposed to be undergoing scrutiny, and part of it were efforts to try and get some consideration for former members of Parliament, such as Honorable Oduya Obrong. But he's gone too soon for it. He's a very resilient person. The tribulations he has had, including the attack on him, but which he has survived for 25 years, I think is testimony to the strength of the man's soul, spirit, and body. Mr. Speaker, we and the people of Nambale greatly mourn Honorable Oduya Obrong. And I would like to urge as many members as possible that when he's interred finally towards the end of June, that we're able to go to Teso North, his constituency home, to bid farewell to him. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very well. Honour members, I think we can, but I see the member for Kwanza. He wants to have the last bite.
Mr. Speaker, may I also take this opportunity on my own behalf, on the behalf of the people of Kwanza, constituency which I represent, to pay my special tribute
to the family of the late Assistant Minister. When I was in school, Mr. Speaker, I heard and saw Mr. Oprong. He was a very eloquent speaker, and I admired him because of the way he conducted himself, the way he actually helped this country. And as somebody has mentioned, Mr. Speaker, this one man that has made history. He's the only one I've heard of having had a bullet lodged in his head for 25 years. He has died with that bullet, and I think that special case is incomparable. But all in all, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to say Oprong was actually somebody that brought peace in Western Kenya when I was growing up. As mentioned by my colleague, Honorable Chris Wamalwa, he is actually a man who has brought peace in the region. And therefore, on behalf of my family, I pay tribute to Honorable Oprong. Asante sana. Thank you. Very last one from the member of the Pensions Committee. The member of the Pensions Committee, Honorable Mwandime. Honorable Mwandime, give him the mic.
Shukran Mheshimiwa Spika kwa hii nafasi ambayo umenipa. Mimi kama mwenye katika kamati ya malipo ya uzeeni katika bunge, Mheshimiwa Spika, nachukua nafasi hii kwa kutoa rambirambi zangu kwa jamii ya Busia. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa ule kweli hawa viongozi wetu ambao walikuwa mbele yetu, hasa wa bunge, Mheshimiwa Spika, wanaumia sana. Mimi kama katika mmojawapo hii kamati, kila siku Mheshimiwa Spika, wabunge wengi wa zamani wanakuja kwa ofisi yangu, na wengi wao utakuta hawana hata tiketi, wakiwa magonjwa, kununua madawa ni matatizo. Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima tuangazie hili swala kwa undani kabisa. Mheshimiwa Spika, hata wenzangu ambao hapa, namwombeni wakati hoja inakuja kwa masuala ya pension, mjaribu kuisikiza na muangalie kwa undani kabisa. Manake nyinyi tutafanya wakati huu, kesho kutwa itakuwa ni sisi. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Very well. Honour members, take your seats. Honour members, just as a way of a reminder, because I've noticed that even we forget the standing orders even as we walk into the chamber. I wish to inform the House that pursuant to the provisions of standing order number 244C regarding pronouncements of budget highlights and revenue-raising measures, the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury will present the budget policy highlights and revenue-raising measures for the national government for the fiscal year 2019-2020 to the National Assembly on Thursday, June 13th, 2019 at 3 p.m. Your Honour members, you are encouraged to be present in the House during this important event that is synchronized with all our countries in the East African community and which has now become a significant part of our budget cycle. It is envisaged that the budget highlights will focus mainly on the ways and means of financing the budget in the 2019-2020 financial year and in the medium term, even as we await the House to conclude with a committee of supply of the same. I thank you, Honour members. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion. Extension of period for consideration of nominees for appointment to diplomatic missions.
The chairman I'm informed that the Honorable Amisi Caleb, is it? Or the Honorable Kanchori?
Yes.
Very well. Who is who? Honorable Kanchori? Very well, proceed.
Yes, thank you.
I hope it has not become a county affair.
It has not, Honorable Speaker. I thank you for giving me this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the following procedural motion that pursuant to the provision of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 relating to the extension of period for consideration of nominees for appointment to a public office, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the nominees submitted by His Excellency the President for appointment to Accra, Berlin, Bern, Dakar, Rome, and Kuwait city missions by a period of 14 days from 12th of June 2019. Honorable Speaker, first and foremost, may I take this opportunity to thank the House for the overwhelming support and contributions from members during the debate on the motion to adopt the report on the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations on the vetting of the nominees for appointment as ambassadors and high commissioners. Honorable Speaker, on 29th May 2019, you conveyed names of nominees of persons for appointment as ambassadors and high commissioners to the committee in line with the resolution of the House passed on Thursday, 9th May 2019, that required you to refer any names of nominees for appointment to a state office that you may have received during the recess period to the relevant committees without having to cause a recall of the House to convey the names. Honorable Speaker, during the same period, the committee was preoccupied in the consideration of the supplementary estimates 2 and the budget estimates for the financial year 2019-2020, and the vetting of the 7 nominees for appointment as ambassadors and high commissioners was the report was tabled on and adopted last week. In this regard, the committee did not embark on the approval hearings of the 6 nominees for appointment to the position of ambassadors and high commissioners. It is worth to note that the period for consideration of the nominees is ending tomorrow, Wednesday, 12th June 2019. Honorable Speaker, the committee did undertake the approval hearing yesterday, Monday, 10th June 2019, and is currently putting up together a report on the same. It is against this backdrop that as committee, we are asking for the indulgence of the House to extend the period for the consideration of the nominees by a period of 14 days. From tomorrow, 12th of June 2019, in line with Section 13 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011. This will accord the committee adequate time to conclude the report and also allow the House sufficient time to consider the report. Honorable Speaker, with these few remarks, I request the Honorable Caleb Kamisi to second.
Honorable Caleb Kamisi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to assure it's not a county affair, I rise to support the procedural motion by Honorable Elijah Memusi. Honorable Speaker, on 29th May 2019, you conveyed names of nominees of persons to be appointed as ambassadors and high commissions to various missions abroad. And being a member of the Committee for Defense and Foreign Affairs, I can confidently report that as a committee we've had an avalanche of activities, including the consideration of supplementary estimates, the budget estimates, and the recently concluded vetting of the first bunch of the nominees that the House debated on. So, Honorable Speaker, it is our view that 14 days, given that the consideration and the tabling of report has a timeline of tomorrow as a deadline, we believe an extension of 14 days will give us enough time, since we've just finished the vetting yesterday, late in the evening. An extension of 14 days will give us enough time to consider the report and table it before the Parliament, so that the Parliament will have enough time to debate and also approve the names of the High Commissioners and the Commissioners. And also in the view that this this debate has gathered a lot of public interest, and it's good to have a list of nominees.
Assembly within 90 days after approval of the report of the supplementary for the supplementary 2 for 2018-2019 by the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, this came from a recommendation by the Energy Committee on an amount that was to go towards payment of the Lake Turkana wind power, and the committee felt that there was need to first audit or subject this project to an audit by the Auditor General, and we have, as a Budget and Appropriations Committee, agreed with this committee that there is need to first conduct an audit of this project before we allow any more money to be appropriated towards payment in this project. Honorable Speaker, that is the Lake Turkana wind power. Honorable Speaker, two, that the withdrawal of Kenya shillings 1 billion from the contingency fund, this was 1,050 million from the contingency fund meant to provide humanitarian support to victims of flood incidences caused by heavy rains at the beginning of 2018, has not been approved by the committee. The committee recommends that the Public Accounts Committee takes up the matter and investigates whether the utilization of the resources contravened the purposes of the advances from Civil Contingency Fund as articulated under Section 21, Section 22 and 23 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012. Honorable Speaker, it's important to note that we did engage with the National Treasury on this issue of the contingency fund and money that was drawn from the contingency fund last year during the heavy rains and flooding that was there, I think in May of 2018, or sometime last year, Honorable Speaker. The National Treasury then moved the issue back to Interior, Ministry of Interior, and the Ministry of Interior, for the first time, we were able to engage with a particular ministry, and we did request the Ministry of Interior, which was represented by its Principal Secretary, and the principal, they are called what? The CAS, appeared before the committee, and they were also accompanied by officers from the Kenya Red Cross who were given this amount of 1 billion shillings. Honorable Speaker, it's important to note that when they appeared before the committee, they requested for 10 days to be able to table statements of accounts as required by the Public Finance Management Act on how this money was utilized. It came to the realization of the committee that as much as they had spent some of this money to do issues, or rather to carry out projects like building houses for flood victims, there are places they had done water projects. I remember a water project in Tharaka-Nithi, which was being commissioned by the governor for that area. And Honorable Speaker, the committee felt that both the National Treasury and the Ministry of Interior did not ensure that money drawn from the contingency fund is utilized in line with the provisions of the Constitution and the sections 21, 22, and 23 of the Public Finance Management Act, and that is why we have disapproved this amount. There are requirements in law, Honorable Speaker, that money that is not spent, that is drawn from the contingency fund, is returned to the fund and to the National Treasury. That was not the case. The Kenya Red Cross Society continued to hold money in their accounts as they awaited to build more houses, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, it begs the question whether we should be using a fund like the contingency fund that should be used to alleviate suffering of people during times of emergencies to do such heavy capital projects like building of houses, and further continue to contravene the law by continuing to hold money that is unutilized and not returning it to the fund as required by law. And therefore, we have left that to the Public Accounts Committee to carry on. And I do hope the Honorable Pio Wandai's committee will be able to pick up that matter and carry on with it. See, Honorable Speaker, that the National Treasury should build capacity in streamlining the process of planning and approval of projects, especially those that are donor-funded. This is because the committee is concerned about the low absorption of development projects. Often the annual estimates exaggerate the counterpart funding for donor-financed projects at the beginning of the financial year, only for them to be adjusted later in the supplementary budget. And I think, Honorable Speaker, you realize from this supplementary budget, a number of donor projects were affected. D, Honorable Speaker, is that external financing of development projects should be reflected in accordance with the Accra Accord on aid effectiveness, which requires the donors channel aid through country, the same old vehicles. Honorable Speaker, the other issues relate to domestic travel and subsistence, and other issues that relate to purchase of office furniture and general equipment, which, Honorable Speaker, again, this is not a commission that is coming into office for the first time. And they had office furniture, and therefore the Finance Committee felt there was no need to even allocate more money for furniture, allocate 20.4 billion shillings to refurbish their offices. Honorable Speaker, they had recommended to get 20 million shillings to refurbish their offices. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I just want to dispel that rumor or that misinformation that there are 120.7 million that has been reduced from the budget of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is as a result of feuds between the House and the Commission, but it's based on issues to do with prudent use of resources. Honorable Speaker, I don't need to go through all the other proposed increments. They are all well enumerated there, and I beg to move and request the Honorable Leader of Majority to second. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Honorable Speaker, I beg to second, and the chair of the Budget Committee, Honorable Chungwa, has said everything, but this is the second supplementary estimate number, which was subsequently submitted to his committee in line with the standing orders and the recommendation made to the financial year 2018-2019 budget estimates. Mr. Speaker, some of the key areas in agencies, in departments, in ministries from the development budget, and this is scaling down of this is due to the same scaling down by the donor community, the donor funding projects. Once the donors scale down their budgets, then the national government, because it's proportional in terms of percentage. Speaker, there are a bit or a few cuts as a result of budget rationalization due to poor